Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Sarah Bolton. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm delighted to be with you tonight. I am the president of the College of Wooster, and it's my honor to introduce this evening's Women and Philanthropy panel. So I want to first thank everyone who's come tonight, as well as all of our team in the advancement office and the Create Her group here on campus, which is a fantastic, dynamic, entrepreneurial group. Everyone who's put energy into making this great series on women and philanthropy possible. If you're with us tonight and you missed the first two events in our series, you're welcome to check those out. We're going to have those recordings available very soon. Those first two events the first was from the Women's Philanthropy Institute on research about women and philanthropy, a brilliant presentation with lots of great research information, very much in the style of Wooster's IS thinking. And then our second presentation was on building your wealth, investing strategies that work. So we'll be sharing information about how to see those recordings very soon, and we absolutely invite you to take advantage of them. So for tonight's panel, though, we're really excited for this opportunity to explore with these wonderful leaders what it means to be a philanthropist, what it means to volunteer, what it means to give back, and why that's important to each of the panelists who's joined us tonight. We're interested in how they came to be dedicated change agents, how each of them has paired their personal passions for various causes with their professions or professional organizations. And we feel so fortunate to have this great panel of alumni leaders, each of whom has dedicated themselves to service, not only at the College of Wooster, although definitely at the College of Wooster, but also within their own communities and families and industries. And it'll be really exciting to hear about that. Before I introduce our panelists, I want to remind everyone tonight that we are recording this evening's session so that those who can't be with us in person are able to watch it at their convenience. And anyone who's participating, you're welcome to ask questions in the chat or the Q&A feature of Zoom, and we'll pull those questions at the end to conclude our conversation and to hear your thoughts and questions for our panelists. So now it's my pleasure to introduce each of our panelists. And I'll start with Latrice Burks. Latrice graduated from Wooster in 2016. And in fact, she's one of the very first Wooster students that I had the pleasure to meet just before I became president. She helped to affirm to me what a wonderful thing it is to be at the College of Wooster with incredible people like Latrice. In her junior and senior years, Latrice gained experience with managing the Political Science Club's annual budget, where she served as the president. She was a member of the senior class committee, and she began there her continued commitment to donating to the Wooster Fund and encouraging her peers to do that as well. Since graduating from Wooster, Latrice has worked at Munger, Tallis & Olson law firm as a fellow and a litigation analyst for a year before she attended law school at the University of Southern California Gould School of Law. In law school, Latrice founded the Women of Color Collective, which is a student organization that highlights and celebrates women of color from all different walks of life. Latrice serves as a scholarship committee chairwoman for the John B. Langston Bar Association in Los Angeles County, and she'll be returning to Los Angeles this fall to join McGuire Woods' downtown LA office as an attorney. Currently, Latrice is coming to us from Hartford, Connecticut, where she's clerking for a federal district court judge. Welcome, Latrice, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm next going to introduce Marilyn K. Duker, who is a member of our Board of Trustees. Marilyn graduated from Wooster in 1976, and she serves as the Chief Executive Officer for Brightview Senior Living. As CEO, Marilyn has the overall responsibility for directing strategy, operations, and the long-term growth of this business. She joined the company, which was known as the Shelter Group, back in 1982, and began her career as a developer. Since then, she's been involved in every phase of this company's operations and growth. Brightview is headquartered in Baltimore, and they operate a 42 community portfolio of independent assisted living and dementia care communities in 8 states throughout the Northeast. And they've been incredibly successful, both in serving their constituents in the communities, as well as in being a great place to work. In fact, in 2019 and 2020, Fortune magazine and the Great Place to Work organization named Brightview Senior Living as the #1 best place to work in senior housing and care among large companies in the United States. In her volunteering and philanthropy, Marilyn serves on the Mercy Health Systems Board of Trustees, the University of Maryland at Baltimore Biopark Corporation Board of Directors, and as I said earlier, the College of Wooster Board of Trustees. In 2019, she was named the Loyola University of Maryland Selinger School of Business Leader of the Year. Marilyn, in addition to her degree from Worcester, also holds a master's degree from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Welcome, Marilyn. We're so glad that you're here. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Jean Pham. Jean graduated from Worcester in 2017 and currently serves as the co-founder and CEO of Celins Incorporated, which is a diagnostic company that's committed to bringing clarity and confidence to patients and physicians through non-invasive cancer detection. Her company strives to advance the current standard of care by offering an easily integrable suite of products in cancer detection. But that's not enough, because that already seems like a really big job, but there's more. She's also the Vice President of External Affairs at Viet Challenge, which is a nonprofit organization that hosts one of the biggest competitions for Vietnamese entrepreneurs around the world. Previously, she served as the Accelerator's Chief Operating Officer and awarded a total of more than $200,000 in cash prizes to Vietnamese connected startups. She was a global entrepreneur in residence, focusing on fundraising strategies and strategic alliances for high-tech entrepreneurs at the Venture Development Center at UMass Boston. Jean has a degree in psychology from the College of Wooster, as well as an MS in innovation management from the Tufts University School of Engineering. Welcome, Jean. We're so glad that you're with us this evening. And then finally, our final panelist is Ann Wilson. Welcome, Ann. Ann graduated from Worcester in 1973, and she is a seasoned educator in many different contexts. After she graduated from Worcester, she taught in both public and private middle schools. And after she also raised 2 children and brought them up in the world, she also served as an educator in 3 different Presbyterian churches in her home area of Houston, Texas. Ann's current passion is volunteering on several nonprofit boards. These include the Presbyterian Pan American School, which is an international college preparatory boarding school in Kingsville, Texas. The Johnson C. Smith Theological Seminary, which is a historically Black institution that advances communities of faith, justice, and compassion, and the Texas Presbyterian Foundation, which is an agency that helps organizations and individuals manage generosity and philanthropy. Ann is also very active with the Presbyterian Association of Musicians, which is a national organization for people involved in worship, music, and the arts, and with the Association of Presbyterian Church Educators, which is a national organization that advances educational ministries in the church. In 2017, Ann received their Lifetime Achievement Award. And lastly, of course, Worcester is very fortunate. We are very fortunate to benefit from Ann's service. She's a member of our Board of Trustees. She previously served a term on our alumni board, including a term as its president and also a term as alumni trustee. She and her husband received the John D. McGee Volunteer Award in 2019, which is an award at Worcester dedicated to volunteerism, philanthropy, and service. And you might want to know that Ann's high school sweetheart and spouse is also a 1973 graduate of the College of Wooster, and their son Michael graduated from Worcester in 2005 as well. So those are our panelists, and welcome everybody. Finally, just before we jump in, I'm very happy to be joined this evening in our facilitating and moderating duties by Lesley Chinery. Lesley is a member of the graduating class of 2021. She's about to graduate. Congratulations. And she's going to moderate this panel along with me. Lesley is a senior communication studies major from Ghana, and she's a member of the Create Her organization, which is a co-sponsor of this series and also engages across campus with helping young women connect to entrepreneurship and innovation. Create Her is a wonderful powerful organization. Lesley has always been interested in issues relating to women, the ways that they perform their identities, as well as how society perceives women's expression of their identities. She's very interested in public relations and branding and in social media content creation. And this coming fall, after graduating from Wooster, Lesley will be pursuing a master's degree in public relations and corporate communications at Georgetown University. So I think everyone joins me in welcoming Lesley and congratulating her on her imminent graduation and on the plans she has ahead. We are so excited. So the way we're going to proceed, Lesley and I are going to trade back and forth, sharing some questions for our panelists. And then, as I said, we'll be very interested in taking questions and having discussion with those of you who are joining our panel this evening. So I'll start with a question that I would be interested in hearing from each of you about, and so people can jump in any order that you feel comfortable. And this is really an opening question about your philanthropy and engagement. It would be great if you could tell us a little bit about your overall philosophy. What does it mean to be a transformative philanthropist or volunteer for the organizations that you're passionate about? And how did you learn about and begin that approach to giving back in places that you feel are important? So go ahead, anyone who'd like to jump in.
I'll jump in.
Oh no, Anne, please.
Okay. So for me, being a philanthropist is just as important in life giving as breathing itself. You've got to both inhale and exhale. You just can't take in all the oxygen without exhaling and giving back that carbon dioxide. Giving back for me did not start with making financial contributions to a cause or an institution. It started with a personal invitation to get involved. It started when a friend said, "Hey, come join me. I believe you have gifts that make a difference." Then in getting involved and getting to know others who are giving of their time and talents and truly understanding the mission and vision of an organization, then I was inspired to want to contribute what I could financially.
Thank you so much. Latrice, I think you are ready to go next.
Right. So Anne had this wonderful analogy of breathing, and for me, mine is similar in the sense where I view the world as quite simply. There are two types of people in the world. There are those who climb the ladder of success, and once they're at the top, they push it away, kick it away, so others can't climb, saying, "Oh, well, you know what? No one helped me, so I'm not going to help anyone else." By contrast, there are those who climb the ladder of success, and once they're at the top, they hold that ladder. Now, for me, I have a lot of ladder holders. Sally Staley, I think, is actually here today. Richard Bell, Tony Clark, Judge Solomon Oliver, Rachel Swanger. There are a lot of Wooster ladder holders. And given that a lot of people have helped me, I have made a dedication to help others. And it has been very, very conscious for me. And I'm very grateful to have help, and I love to give help when I can.
Thank you so much. That's really inspiring what each of you had to say. Marilyn or Jean, would either of you jump in?
I guess for me, the title of this was, I think, Transformative Philanthropy. And, I would say I aspire to contribute to a small part of transformation when I volunteer or make a philanthropic decision. And for me, I think it started as probably a teenage, in a conscious way as a teenager, just through my involvement in our Presbyterian church as I was growing up. And I had a very active youth group and did a lot of volunteering. And my family were always very big readers, and I read a lot widely about the world beyond our experience. And so I started volunteering as a teenager, and then that continued in college, and then certainly as an adult, and began to serve on boards. And then as I started to have the financial means to contribute financially, then I've started to do that. And I've learned a lot from not only older mentors whose philanthropy I've had the benefit of observing and talking with them about how they make decisions, but also I would say my 29-year-old daughter has been really inspirational, and just in terms of, and we have a lot of conversations about how to think about philanthropy and the ways to give money or restrict or not restrict money. And she's got a master's in public health and social work. And so we have a lot of really interesting conversations about this. And we've also talked about it as a family in family meetings that we have annually, and actually done a family mission statement about philanthropy, our family philanthropy, and established and really had a good discussion about our core values that has also helped inform it. So a lot of different influences, I would say.
That's great, Marilyn. Welcome, Jean.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. I definitely echo a lot of the things that you guys said. Definitely, Marilyn, I think the same experience to me when I think about volunteering and helping others. Because I think one kind of childhood memory that still like stick with me until this day is when I probably in my 6 or 7 years old, and my dad is a civil engineer, so he out in the field all the time. My mom is a community college teacher, so most of the time, you know, my mom and I was in the house playing and you know, having a lot of time together. But whenever one of us feeling sick, meaning that we cannot go to the market to get grocery or to get thing we need in order to cook our meal, my mom would tell me to come to our neighbor and then ask for that. So I would knock on the door of my neighbor. I was like 6, 7 years old. Just, hi, do you have some rice? Can I borrow some salt, fish salt? And then they would give it to me. And then I would, you know, go on doing prepping my meal. And that kind of generosity, I would like, for now, when I'm much older, when I reflect on that piece of childhood memory, the kind of generosity and giving first without asking anything, and the kind of relationship, the community-driven part of it, it's something that become very natural, and something that still like really stick with me whenever I think about helping other people. Because if they ask for help, meaning that they need the help, and do I have the kind of, you know, support that I can give to them, then yeah, the answer is if I do have that, then yes. So yeah.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. Lesley, you want to take a question?
Yeah, sure. I think Jean already touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to know if each of you represent a diverse set of backgrounds and experiences and cultures. So can you describe how this has affected your overarching mindset on philanthropy and volunteerism?
Well, I think I've been incredibly fortunate in my life, starting with the accident of birth that meant that I grew up in a family that, you know, while not wealthy, we didn't have to struggle. And obviously being white in this country also means that I have a lot of privilege that people who are not white in the US do not. And so, you know, I just think about my philanthropy and volunteerism as things I can do to share what that privilege has in part enabled me to achieve, and, you know, just makes me want to focus my philanthropy on that.
Thank you very much.
And I will come at it from the educator standpoint. Ever since I was a child, I wanted to be a teacher. And I was so fortunate growing up to have fine examples of educators who made a difference for me and who shaped me and into who I have become. And so having served as an educator as my vocation in both secular and faith-based sectors, I was able to use my gifts and passions throughout my working career. And now that I am not gainfully employed, I can use those gifts in a different way. with a different perspective. So I like to think of the theater as a model, that rather than leading from the stage, now I can take a view from the balcony to have a wider perspective and to help steer and shape and hopefully direct a vision that way.
I like that analogy.
So for me, I grew up in the wonderful suburb Shaker Heights. It was wonderful growing up. I had a lot of different friends from like different backgrounds. It was very diverse. It was wonderful. Our teachers used to tell us that it was a bubble because most of the country was not like us. And I found that to be true. When I went to Worcester, I met some peers who were white, who had never met people of color before. And that was like mind-boggling. Like, that's how, like, why? But it was then when I made the commitment to promote diversity and inclusion at every institution that I touched. So I did not just want to get a degree, BA, law degree. I wanted to leave that place better than how I found it. And that was the reason why I founded the Women of Color Collective at law school, because it did not exist. And there were several women of color from different backgrounds, Black, Asian American, Latinas, who were leaving their mark on campus, and we had more in common than we did different. And it was important to me for us to highlight our similarities than any kind of difference. So my background has really played a role in the causes that I care about.
Yeah, I resonate with a lot of what you say, Latrice. I think a lot of the time when we think about opportunity, it's not something created equal for all of us. And sometimes, like when I think about why even like I pick Worcester, like from Vietnam, like a country so far away, and Worcester is, I don't even know how to spell like or say Wooster, like when I first arrive on campus, like how do I say this college name? I think the idea of having an education and having access to opportunity is really a game changer to a lot of us. And when I think back about what costs and how can I contribute back, knowing that I'm still very young in my career, probably financial is not the best thing that I can give. How do I creatively give back and provide access, provide opportunity, and bringing more folks who have the same background or similarity that will be able to like get the same opportunity that I have. And a lot of the work, Vietnam is a low to middle income country, growing very fast, but a lot of people who are very bright and young do not have the opportunity that if they were given, they will be much more impactful than if you give them the money. So some social problem could not be solved with the money. Sometimes it's the door opener. Sometimes it's someone who be there and like Latrice say, hold the ladder for you so you can climb up and you can get the opportunity that you needed. So I think about that a lot when I pick the organization that I'm gonna spend my time and spend my effort to think through the strategy. How can we provide these access to the most potential one and the one who change the future of our country? And I think it speaks a lot to our donor who know the reason why we are giving the time and the reason why we're knocking on their door to ask for support. So yeah, thinking creatively, finding why you want to give, and I think that story will resonate with people.
Thank you so much, Gina. And that's a wonderful segue to the next area that we thought we might explore together, which is exactly what you said. How are you choosing of all the places that you could bring your brilliance? And the brilliance of this panel is just spectacular, but your brilliance, what you can bring in ideas and time and resources, how do you choose the places that you want to contribute, the places that you want to make an impact? And I think, Jean, you kicked us off in that direction so beautifully. How do you choose the places you want to make an impact? And then how do you choose what you want to do there, right? The thing that you want to enact to really make a difference.
And maybe I go, sorry if I jump in first, but I think it's
perfect.
Like,
go ahead.
For me, I think knowing the founder and knowing the one who running the organization is really understanding their mission, the reason why they are doing what they do. Like, I'm sure Marilyn and Anne can resonate when you work for nonprofit. Most of the time, these people overwork a lot. They do multiple things at once, running the whole show by themselves and with maybe 2 or 3 more staff. And the work that they are doing, it has to mean something to them and why it keeps them up at night. So whenever I think about what organization I want to join or I want to help out, I really take the time to talk to these founders or at least the leader of the organizations and really see myself, do I fit into their mission, their strategies, and how can I help other than, money, which I do not have a lot, but like how do I adding more value and be more, time efficient with the effort that I could give. And to me, it's about understanding the organization, talking to the leader, taking the time to really assess where they are heading to and see myself in their future plans is how I pick organization.
That's great. That's great. Who else would like to offer a thought in that direction?
I'll go. I guess I would say that I'm certainly very passionate about Worcester because it was transformative for me. But I also really am focused on funding efforts to improve the city where I live, which is Baltimore, which is a very challenged city. And I have a real passion for what I guess I would call entrepreneurial philanthropy that is really focused on achieving systemic or structural change, sort of going at the root causes of problems. And so for me, that often means that I like to fund organizations and get involved with organizations that have a research component to their work so that they can actually have a way to measure their outcomes and really assess, are they achieving their desired outcomes? And because I do think there's so many nonprofits and many are well-intended, but they're not, they can have a longer term view that doesn't always focus on accountability for some shorter term results and achievement. And structural change is hard and it takes a long time, but there are things you can track along the way to make sure you're making progress. And what Jean said about knowing the founder or the person running the organization is often, it's certainly extremely important to me if I'm funding or getting involved with a large organization, with making a large gift to an organization, and making sure that they have a strategic plan and a sustainable approach to the organization being long-lived. And then I think the other thing, I started off with this real focus on structural change and root causes, but my daughter and I have talked a lot about this, and there definitely are times when it just feels right to provide direct benefit to individual people or organizations that are funding individual students, for example. And we do a lot of individual scholarships, for example, just because I think, for me, education was transformative, and I think it can be for so many people. So I would say that's another really important element that we do alongside our more entrepreneurial philanthropy.
I will share with you my experience with Johnson C. Smith Theological Seminary. So that's the historically Black seminary. that is really just in a position of transforming itself. It's all the classes are virtual right now. They do not own a building. And just like you all said, to get to know the person in charge, the current president is just an amazing, transformative person. This was a board that I was asked to be on and was first asked to make a financial commitment. And I said, I don't know much about your school at all. So let me get involved. Let me see what you're doing before I would step in and make a contribution. So as a board member, I'm able to use my gifts. I will share that yesterday, my committee for this board presented a manual for operations. How exciting is that? But I was able to help with that. And then we were asked to each think about 10 to 20 people that we knew that we might get their contact information, write each of them a personal note to begin opportunities for this seminary to contact these particular people that I had contact with to say, here's what we're about. And then eventually, would you consider contributing? So it's trying to build a personal relationship with that around your passions.
That's great. Go ahead, Latrice.
Yeah, so for me, I think I kind of talked about this a little bit, but for me, diversity, inclusion, gender, and how race and gender intersect, right? That's a big issue. So for the Women of Color Collective in law school, we actually raised, it was a fundraiser where we actually collected feminine hygiene products and like donated those to local LA shelters for who are those who focus for women, right? So that was really great. And there's ways to give back without having to give money, which I think we actually talked, which we all talked about in different ways. But because most graduates, students don't have money to give. So we do cool things about like talking about gender wage gaps and how women of color are paid less, but paid less than even white women. So we talk about things like that. So it's it's fun to do things like that, and to for me, race, gender, things that I care about that affect me and people that I care about.
Latrice, I think that's a really good point, that sometimes one of the most impactful things you can do is be a voice, and speak on a subject and become a good advocate. And that's as powerful often as a financial gift or, spending a tremendous amount of time working in an organization. So I think that's a great point.
And yeah, to add on that, I think representation really matter, like having people, like I think that's what Wooster does really well, bringing people from different background and mindset to come and work together. The world we are right now is like everything is interconnected. You cannot solve one thing without looking at the other. And I think representations matter a lot. If people do not see themselves like having a seat at the table and have a voice in these problems, they're not gonna change, or they're not gonna feel empowered to change. So really important to have representation, to have just a kind of mindset that bring everyone like open-minded and listen to each other before we can make any judgments about other people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I appreciate too what several people have said, but Latrice maybe most recently talked about your own voice, but then also organizing others, right? It's like, so this Women of Color Coalition is bringing voices together and, working collectively to convene to make an impact either at your university or in the area around the university. And as you said, Jean, that bringing together of voices and ideas, right? So that you're collectively thinking about what you can do. In the first event of this series, when they were talking about the research in women's philanthropy, there was a really interesting conversation about kind of the ways that women kind of can work collectively. Sometimes, nobody is individually in a position to change something or in a position to give a lot of funds, but people are often work in these circles, right? And the first act is to create the circles and to bring people together, and talked about how that had been powerful in a lot of communities as a way of thinking together about the kind of impact that you want to make. And so that just resonates for me, what you were saying, Latrice, about, why you gathered that, or why you created that particular organization, the kinds of impacts that you were looking to make. So that's awesome. Lesley, go ahead.
I'm really enjoying the conversation, especially as someone who likes to connect, all I do back to my identity as a woman. But at the same time, I'm very aware that women face an unfair burden when it comes to like family and career and giving back. So can you talk about how you found a balance when it comes to career, family, and making the time to give back to causes that support you?
So to be honest, I'm actually struggling with this myself. It's hard to be at the early stages of my career, and having people asking to do different things. So I am learning the power of no and when to say it. I feel like women particularly might be asked to do more things that a lot of our male counterparts might not do. And I think because a lot of the way that women are raised, we're raised to believe that if you say no, you might come off as mean, you don't want to be rude. Men don't think like that, and they don't worry about that. So I don't think we should either, but I am slowly embracing that type of mindset.
Wow, I resonate just so hard with what Latrice say. I think, well, I mean, prioritizing and delegating is all I do in order to like balance this out. You have to know your priority. You cannot do everything. And I think sometimes people talk about balance, but balance means different thing at different stage of your life, right? When you early on in your career, like you have to really work hard, and you don't have, like, I don't think Latrice and I have a family yet. So it's not a big deal for us to balance out our work with other things that we do. But also time is money, time is everything. We have to find a way to prioritize and give other people responsibility, and they can take ownerships. And I think leaderships come with that experience as well, when you give other people the chance to do and help you and join you in your cause. The organization I work with, Viet Challenge, we have 50 volunteers all across the world, like Vietnamese young professional and people who they're in their 20, very competent people. Sometimes when I think about what I do, I often have to think about what is my number one task, and my number two task is actually asking the other person to do my number two task. So delegating and finding out your priorities and giving the chance to other folks to join you, I think that is, has been my key. But I'm looking up to Anne and Marilyn to see your life secret. How do you handle this?
Yeah.
Well, I would say I have my hat off to Latrice if you've already learned how to say no, because that is something I was not very good at when I was younger. And I've had a really demanding job for probably more than 35 years. And in the beginning, it was really hard. I mean, I think frankly, it's always hard for women. And if you're working and having a family, and it's just really challenging. And I think, as Jean also said, prioritizing, learning how to say no. And I think a really important thing in today's work world, I think less so maybe 30 years ago, but I think today, we're really focused on pushing down decision-making and empowering people at different levels of the organization so that all the decisions aren't made by senior people. And you really get better decisions that way. And by having just a greater diversity of involvement in decision-making, and therefore in responsibility and work, and and that helps share some of the burden. So, I think when my kids were young, I did less volunteering than, and as they got into school, then I was able to do more, and certainly a lot more once they left the home, left my home. So it's hard. There's no two ways around it, but you two have got really good, you've got your feet on the ground. If you already know how to say no and set priorities, those are two really good things.
If you had asked my spouse right now if my life was in balance, he would say absolutely not, Anne. But I love what I'm doing right now, right? Involved in so many different organizations, and each one of them I am truly passionate about and love the time that I am putting in. But I've always felt like I had the support of my family. Growing up with kids, we still made time to volunteer. And I think it's so important for your kids and your family to see that you are giving back. I think now both of my own children also feel that way. They know the importance of giving back and volunteering. So that's important. I give my encouragement so much to you all, the younger women, because, oh my gosh, we need your voices. We need your involvement, your leadership, your confidence, what you bring to the table. I affirm so much. So encourage you in every possible way to somehow find balance, but please continue to share your gifts.
Thank you all very much. So I just want to take us back a little bit to, I think, the very first question President Bolton asked. And I realized that a lot of you talked about your childhoods in terms of getting involved with giving back. And that's where you cultivated these ideas and habits. But then the issue is oftentimes individuals think about giving back in terms of making a donation, in terms of money, which is important. But can you describe how you use your talents and voice to give back to the organizations you're involved with?